To the narcissistic woman, people are not encountered as whole, living subjects with their own inner worlds, but as roles to be cast in the theater of her psyche. You are unconsciously assigned a function: the one who admires, the one who heals, the one who provides, the one who reflects back her ideal image. In Jungian terms, you are not met as a self, but as an object onto which parts of her fragmented inner life are projected. Your individuality is tolerated only as long as it serves the stability of her constructed persona. The moment you step outside the role, by expressing needs, limits, or emotional depth, you disrupt the internal script, and what disrupts the script must be replaced. This is why the shift can feel so sudden and so cold. It is not personal in the way the heart understands, but structural in the way the psyche defends itself. A role can be reassigned. A function can be substituted. A character can be written out of the story. But a whole human being cannot be truly seen without the capacity for mutual recognition. And so the painful truth is this: when you are treated as disposable, it is because you were never allowed to be a person in the first place. The task, then, is not to earn a better role, but to refuse to live as one. Your emotional depth is not comforting to a narcissistic woman. It is unsettling. Depth implies reflection, conscience, and the capacity to look inward, and these qualities silently expose what has been split off and buried in her own psyche. In Jungian language, you become a living mirror of the shadow. She cannot face vulnerability, dependency, emptiness, and the longing for genuine connection. Rather than allowing this encounter to soften her, it threatens the fragile architecture of her false self, the carefully maintained image that says, "I am complete, I am superior, I am untouchable." So the psyche moves into defense. What evokes shame and insufficiency must be diminished. Your sensitivity is reframed as weakness, your insight as judgment, your empathy as neediness. By reducing your depth, she protects herself from the unbearable contrast between what is authentic in you and what is missing in her. This is why you are not simply misunderstood. You are actively devalued. Your presence awakens a truth her inner world is not structured to hold. The tragedy is that what could have been a bridge to healing becomes a trigger for rejection. And the essential realization for you is this: your depth is not the problem, it is the revelation. Never make yourself shallow to be tolerated by someone who fears the ocean. In the beginning, what you experience as love is often not recognition, but projection. You are elevated, admired, even idealized. Yet this elevation is not rooted in a careful seeing of who you actually are. You become the screen upon which her unmet needs, grand fantasies, and longing for perfection are unconsciously displayed. In Jungian terms, you carry an archetypal image: the savior, the perfect partner, the one who will finally complete the unfinished story of herself. This feels intoxicating because it touches something universal in us: the desire to be seen as extraordinary. But projection is unstable by nature. Reality slowly intrudes, as it always must. You show limits, complexity, and human contradiction. The image begins to crack. And when the image collapses, it is not gently revised, it is violently withdrawn. The same psyche that lifted you to the heavens now experiences you as a disappointment, even a betrayal, because you failed to remain a fantasy. This is why the fall can feel so brutal, and so confusing. You did not change in essence. The projection did. The invitation here is to understand love that cannot survive reality was never love, only a dream looking for a body. And your task is not to become someone's fantasy, but to remain real.
For the narcissistic woman, attachment is not organized around mutual presence, but around regulation and control. Where a mature bond seeks to know and be known, her bond seeks to stabilize an inner world that is chronically anxious and fragmented. You become, often without realizing it, an external organ of her psyche, the one who calms her fears, confirms her specialness, absorbs her unspoken shame, and restores the illusion of superiority. When it wavers, this is not intimacy in the true sense. It is a psychological arrangement. As long as you perform this regulatory function, the connection feels intense, even consuming. But the moment you assert a boundary, express an independent need, or refuse to mirror the image she requires, the function fails. And what fails in function is experienced not as a person in pain, but as a malfunctioning object. Control then replaces connection, distance replaces dialogue, and devaluation replaces understanding. This is why your individuality becomes a threat. To be a self is to step out of the role of emotional instrument, and in doing so, you expose the absence of a genuine relational bond beneath the surface drama. The essential truth to carry with you is this: where control is required, love cannot freely exist. Do not confuse intensity with intimacy, and never sacrifice your inner sovereignty to maintain an illusion of closeness. Beneath the appearance of cold detachment lies a profound and often unconscious terror, the fear of being abandoned, of being rendered insignificant, of dissolving into emotional nothingness. The narcissistic woman does not treat others as disposable because she feels powerful, but because she is defending against this primitive dread. In Jungian terms, dependency awakens the archaic wound of the child, who once learned that attachment was unsafe or unreliable. To need is to risk annihilation, and so the psyche constructs a counter strategy. I will be the one who leaves, I will be the one who replaces, I will be the one who cannot be left. By reducing others to interchangeable figures, she preserves the illusion of invulnerability. Loss is reframed as choice, rejection as control. If you are merely a character, your absence requires no mourning, only substitution. Yet this very maneuver freezes the heart in perpetual exile. For what is never allowed to be deeply attached is never allowed to be deeply loved. This is the tragic paradox. In trying to escape the pain of abandonment, she recreates it endlessly on both sides of the bond. And your awakening lies in seeing the pattern without personalizing the wound. When someone must discard to feel safe, the safety is false. Choose relationships where presence is not a threat, but a home. When you are finally discarded, it is tempting to interpret the event as a verdict on your worth, as if being replaceable meant being insignificant. But psychologically, the opposite is often closer to the truth. What is most easily thrown away in a narcissistic dynamic is not what is empty, but what is too real. Your capacity for love, depth, conscience, and emotional presence confronts the inner fragmentation the narcissistic woman works tirelessly to deny. In Jungian terms, you carry aspects of the integrated self that her psyche has not yet been able to tolerate or embody. To remain close to you would mean to feel, to reflect, to grieve, to become accountable to an inner truth. And that is precisely what the false self is built to avoid. So the psyche resolves the tension in the only way it knows. It expels the reminder. You are not removed because you lack value, but because your value exposes a lack. The discard is not a judgment of your soul. It is a confession of her inner division. Understanding this shifts the meaning of the wound. You are not a failed character in her story. You are a reality her story could not contain. And the final, sobering truth is this: never measure your worth by the capacity of a fractured mind to recognize it. Your task is not to be chosen by the unconscious, but to choose yourself consciously.